Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today we're going to get into it, perception versus perspective. I can't block my ex. I can't do no contact. I can't get this person out of my head. I hate them. I love them. The list goes on. The list goes on. The list goes on, folks. Right? So I got some stories on deck, and we're going to break this down. I have a couple interviews to share regarding this topic, and it's a good one because it was broken down by an ex-CIA agent in an interview with Lex Friedman, Andrew Bustamante, who I hadn't heard of before, but it was a brilliant interview. And in this interview, I found it interesting that he divulged what he thought was the greatest ability or secret. We're gonna get into that in this video. Was to understand the difference between perspective and perception, and I wholeheartedly agree. I believe that it's massively underrated to understand perception versus perspective, and this guy breaks it down really clean. And really, when I ask people to write their breakup stories and I break down their breakup stories, I'm giving you not only my perspective, my objective perspective, a perspective that's read a lot of breakup stories and talked to a lot of people about breakups. And perspective is where someone's coming from based on their life experience, what they've learned, and really in 2022, the content they've consumed. So a lot of times people out there are regurgitating a lot of things that they've read or videos they've watched and getting information from that. And so perspective is this bundle of, this is what I believe. And you don't really, here's the thing, when you have human interactions, you're interacting with another human being, a friend, family, or colleague, and in this case, your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or wife, or someone you're just dating, right? So you're in a relationship like this, and you come across a situation where the person is fooling themselves, right? You're like, I don't agree with their perception, right? Someone says something like, well, I can tell you don't really care about me. And you go, well, where did you come up with that from? And there's a story I'm going to share in this live stream in a little bit. But they're coming up with ideas of what you think, which is their perception, because you said a word or you did a tell with your body language that they perceived was going to go down a certain way. And that's why a lot of times perception is based on past events, past life experiences. It's like, if you ever went up to a dog, I remember a friend of mine when I was a kid, a long time ago as a kid, and I'd go over to this friend's house, and he had a dog, and the dog wasn't extremely friendly, but it was not a scary dog, right? It wasn't a dog that I was going to run from or was going to bite me, okay? But if you went and grabbed a newspaper and you raised that newspaper around that dog, above its head, the dog would go like this. Now, this dog was, I believe it was, rescued or from the pound or something like that, if they even call it the pound anymore, Humane Society. And the perception of the dog is that you're going to hit me with that newspaper because someone obviously hit the dog with the newspaper before, right? I mean, it was apparent right away. And so you think to yourself, I'm not going to hit you with the newspaper, buddy, and you give the dog a pet and this and that. But the dog, after you had that newspaper in the hand, the dog would, Now, this happens all the times in human interactions. Someone perceives that you're going to do a certain thing because of something that's happened to them before. And this comes up again and again in breakups and relationships. Again and again. And this is the biggest thing. Well, this is how I see it. But if you go deeper and deeper, you're like, how do you see it that way? Well, this is what my mom used to do. Well, this is what my dad used to do. Well, this is what my ex-boyfriend used to do. This is what my ex-girlfriend used to do. And the list goes on. And then we can come up with a lot of examples of this. But in real time, a lot of people can't decipher. They're just perceiving things, and their perception leads to ill perspectives or assumptions. So they assume they know what's going on or what's going to happen next based on past events, which leads to perception. Is that confusing or not confusing? I'm sorry. But I'm going to give you some examples before we get deeper into a story on deck, and then I have some reactions to some examples of perception versus perspective. And this is a really good topic for your life. Okay, this is a life tool. If you get it, it will really help you at work. It'll help you with your family members, and it's absolutely enlightening. Okay, now I've known this for years, but the way it was broke down in this video that I'm going to share in a little while is brilliant. And the fact that the guy's a CIA agent and he's valuing it gives it some weight, right? He's got credibility and clout. But really quick, my perception is what I see and feel. My perspective is what I believe based on what I know and what I want to believe. Now think about that for a moment, folks. Now, you're saying, I know my perspective. I know why I believe what I believe. But here's the chore, folks. Can you understand someone else's perspective? Think about that for a minute. You have a disagreement, you're not getting along with, can you understand where they're coming from? Now, there's certain situations where you just go, we're going to agree to disagree. Right? We're going to agree to disagree. It's perhaps possible to see someone's perspective in a story. Right? But when someone's writing a breakup story, and I'm going to break one down today, when someone's writing a breakup story in, they're giving me their perspective and their perception of the situation. A lot of times, they're ignoring the fact that the person on the other end would probably have a completely different story. Wouldn't it be so interesting if we could have, hey, you write your breakup story and then have your partner write their version, and how much they are different, right? And the perspective would be, well, I didn't mean that when I said that, right? So someone can say something joking, and the other person can go, I didn't take that as a joke. It wasn't funny. Their perception was, you were trying to hurt my feelings. That wasn't nice. And the other person's perspective was, I was just making a joke, trying to have some fun. All right? Can we look at the other person's perspective? Now, we can do this post-breakup. We can do this when we get fired from work. We can do this when we have any kind of altercation. Now, here's an example. If any of you have listened to hip-hop before or rap, a lot of times they have some incredible stories, right? Dramatic stories. It's like the rapper Biggie Smalls, right? Says, when I was dealing drugs on a street corner just so I could feed my daughter. Now, he's creating a situation saying, this is where I'm coming from. I'm not just dealing drugs on a street corner. I'm doing it to feed my daughter. Now, someone might find valor in that. Someone might go, oh my God, now I totally understand why this guy's, selling drugs. Now, some other guy that maybe had a daughter in his, youth, because I'm assuming that Biggie's saying I'm a young kid when this happens, and he goes out and gets a job as a garbage man to feed his daughter, right? And he doesn't deal drugs. The reality is, when that's laid out in the rap or the song, you think, wow, now I can understand why he did that, because he's trying to feed his daughter. But what you're not thinking is, could he get another job? Are there other people out there that feed their daughters in different ways, even if they're desperate to do so? Not saying Biggie's wrong or right, but that's a different perspective. If someone was saying, well, there's a lot of consequence to doing that, right? If you had to sit down with them and you were like, hey, well, why couldn't you get a different job? Or why couldn't you do something different? If he said, oh, I couldn't get hired because this, or this. Now you have a little bit more perspective of where he's coming from. The idea that he's just feeding his daughter, there's a lot of people that take different jobs just to feed their daughter. There's a lot of people that move up in a certain career to feed their daughter. Now, when it's done emotionally in a song and someone likes this person, they're like, wow, there's a lot of valor in that. Here's another situation. Stay with me. We got 5 on deck. Please put it in the comments. What's your thoughts on perspective to perception or this situation right here? A man kills a mosquito because they carry disease and can bite you. All right? I kill mosquitoes. That's probably one of the only bugs I kill. Okay? I don't just kill a bug to kill a bug. I'll put it in a napkin and I'll throw it outside. Okay? I just don't like doing that. When I was a little kid, I might stomp something. You ever stomp ants or something like that? But why do you kill a mosquito? Well, everyone's perspective is, well, they can bite me, they carry disease, and they cause itchy, ugly marks, right? So it's pretty easy. The same man lets a spider live. So the same man that kills a mosquito, stay with me on this. The same man lets a spider live because their web catches mosquitoes. He thinks to himself, I'm not going to kill this spider and the spider doesn't bite, and I'm not scared of spiders, right? Some other guy goes, oh, I kill all spiders because they're deadly. Someone else goes, well, not all spiders are deadly, dumbass. A spider expert can identify all of them. It's perspective, 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 perspective. Now, if you get 5 people in a room, one person's scared of spiders, one person lets them all live, another person says, I identify the spiders that are dangerous and I identify the ones that are safe, and then I let the ones that are safe perspective, perspective, perspective. We can go on and on and on about this. And all the perspectives, right, are opinion-based. Some of them are fact-based. But the perspectives, a lot of times people just think their perspective's correct and it's the only one. And if they get challenged because they're stubborn or ignorant meaning you don't know what you don't know, then they become someone that gets in an argument but doesn't see the other person's perspective. So if I'm a spider fucking expert, right? I know all about spiders. Someone comes to me, I go, hey, that's not a deadly spider. It's not going to even leave a mark. They don't bite. You can just leave that spider alone and it actually will catch mosquitoes and eat them, right? The other person goes, no, I don't trust that because I just don't like spiders. I'm scared of them and I don't believe you. Well, their perspective is, I'm ignorant. I don't know what you know. I don't believe you. I don't trust you. You're perhaps an academic and I'm someone that doesn't believe in academics, right? Perspective. And we can go on and on and on. While another man kills all bugs because they're dirty and disgust them, right? Now, people aren't going to get in big arguments over this, right? But I'm going somewhere with this. Now, here's another example. An alcoholic says he drinks beer because he likes the taste. Can't help drinking more because it refreshes him and he loves cold beer so much. It's just about taste, not about feeling. And I'm not an alcoholic. I just drink a lot sometimes. His kids go, Dad's an asshole. He's out of control. He's had 2 drunk drivings. We don't know what to do. And he goes, I don't remember that. Oh, yeah, maybe I do get 2 drunk sometimes, but actually I'm not that bad and I'm not as bad as my dad was. Perspective. So he brings up, oh, my dad was worse. He used to hit my mom or something like that, right? Perspective. And this is what comes up in relationships. And this is when you're in relationships and you're thinking, why are we having so many problems? Because when the honeymoon ends, the intimacy is not good anymore. You're living together or you're around each other a lot more. Perspectives keep coming up where you're like, why do you think that way? But what you don't think, you don't stop, take 2 steps back instead of taking 2 steps forward into an argument and go, where are they coming from? Like, who told you that? Like, where did you get that from? Like, why do you think what you think? Because if you ask the guy if he goes, like I said, the mosquito thing, a man kills a mosquito because they carry disease, they cause marks, and they hurt you, right? Pretty good reasoning. Now, an alcoholic says he drinks beer because it tastes good and it's refreshing, all the while ignoring the fact that he has 2 DUIs and he scares the hell out of his kids when he's drunk. But his perspective is, it tastes good and that's why I drink it. He's created that reality, right? And it's true to him. 100% true, because he doesn't have a video camera for the perspective of his kids watching his actions the whole time. Now, let's get to the relationship part of this. All right. In a relationship, there's a constant perspective versus perception situation occurring. Okay? Constantly. All the time. Because you had different parents, you were raised differently, different caretakers, and that right there is different. You went to different schools, you had different teachers, and I'm going to tell you this right now. This is the other one. You consume different content. Now, here's the crazy part. Let's say you consumed all the same content. You watch all the same Netflix series together. You follow the same YouTube channels. You're still going to think different about those movies and those videos because your parents and your teachers and your perceptions prior to were different. It's just this domino effect, right? It's just domino effect that keeps going and going and going. And so when you get into a relationship and you start to love each other and the curtains get unveiled and you're like, I would never do that. So you get in these arguments and you're like, well, for example, in my past relationship, we never did that, or my mom never did that. And it's like, well, that's your perspective based on your life experience, based on what you've seen. That's not how I operate. That's not how I look at the world. So really enlightened people that are on another level of consciousness, right? Their superpower is to make it their mission to just understand where you're coming from, not necessarily agree with you. Now, in a relationship, you can understand where someone's coming from, not like it, not accept it, but at least you know that they're not just stupid or it doesn't make you angry. That's why I always say pleading ignorance is actually a very admirable thing to do. When someone goes, I don't know a lot about that, rather than, oh, I know this. It's like, yeah, you know like a 0.001% about something and you're trying to act like an aficionado, right? You got some people talking about perspectives that they don't have a lot of experience in, right? So with no one seeing the other's perspective and drawing their own perceptions, what you're doing wrong or what you're really thinking. Now, a perspective is built on your life experiences. It's where your thought process comes from. It's why you do what you do. And it's really just related to a seedling, right? Let's say that you always drive slow. Or better yet, let's just take it a step further. There's a couple times I've worked with people, they don't drive. I don't drive. They always have to get a ride. And it's not because they don't have enough money for a car, because that would be another reason. It's because when they were young, they got in a bad car accident and they never want to drive. They never want to be the driver of a car. It scares the hell out of them. That's perspective. Now, some ignorant idiot can come to the table and go, why don't you just learn how to drive? Quit being scared. Here's the thing you'll never know. You weren't in that car. You weren't in that accident. You never had that feeling that they had when they were, 8 years old, 9 years old in a car accident that scared the hell out of them. You'll never have that feeling. And so when you're just saying, like, why don't you learn how to drive? That's the wrong approach to take. Actually asking them about the car accident, getting a little more detailed, and then telling them it's okay that they don't want to drive. But if they're ready and they're willing, at some point you're there for them. That would be a different approach, right? Your perception would be you're just scared. Your perception would be, well, you just look like you're lazy. You want someone to drive for you, right? All right, I got 8 on deck. And like I said, if you got any comments on this, but we're going to get into a story, and I'm going to give you the perspective and perception of this story. I'm going to take it from a different standpoint. Well, this story will probably be on my channel different way. If you haven't been to my channel before, it's right, Coach Mac McCarthy, but writemac.com if you want to send in your story and get it broken down like this. Then we're also going to break down actually, let's go straight into the video here with Andrew Bustamante, former CIA agent. This is just a short clip, but Lex Friedman's asking him, what would be one of the greatest things that he could share being an ex-CIA agent. And it has to do with perception versus perspective. So let's get into that.
be doing it carefully, but it's also the place where you can truly discover something fundamental about this world that people don't understand, and then and lay the groundwork for progress, scientific, cultural, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
What is one spy trick? This is from a Reddit that I really enjoy. What's one spy trick? And you're full of a million spy tricks. People should follow you. You did an amazing podcast. You're just an amazing person.
Thanks.
What is the one spy trick you would teach everyone that they can use to improve their life instantly? Now, you already mentioned quite a few, but what else could jump to mind?
My go-to answer for this has not really changed much over the last few years. So the most important spy trick to change everything immediately is something called perception versus perspective. We all look at the world through our own perception. My dad used to tell me, my stepdad used to tell me that perception is reality. And I was arguing this with him when I was 14 years old. I told you so, Dad, you're still wrong.
Yeah.
But perception is your interpretation of the world around you, but it's unique only to you. There's no advantage in your perception. That's why so many people find themselves arguing all the time, trying to convince other people of their own perception. The way that you win any argument, the way that you get ahead in your career, the way that you outsell or outrace anybody is when you move off of perception and move into perspective. Perspective is the act or the art of observing the world from outside of yourself, whether that's outside of yourself as like an entity just observing in a third from a different point of view, or even more powerful, you sit in the shoes, you sit in the seat of the person opposite you, and you think to yourself, what is their life like? What do they feel right now? Are they comfortable? Are they uncomfortable? Are they afraid? Are they scared? What's the stressor that they woke up to this morning? What's the stressor that they're going to go to sleep with tonight? When you shift places and get out of your own perception and into someone else's perspective, now you're thinking like them, which is giving you an informational advantage. But you know what they're all doing? Everyone else out there is trapped in their own perception, not thinking about a different perspective. So immediately you have superior information, superior positioning. You have an advantage that they don't have. And if you do that to your boss, it's going to change your career. If you do that to your spouse, it's going to change your marriage. If you do that to your kids, it's going to change your family legacy because nobody else out there is doing it.
It's so interesting how difficult empathy is for people and how powerful it is, especially for like you said, with spouse, like intimacy,
Yeah.
like stepping outside of yourself and really putting yourself in the shoes of the other person, considering how they see the world. And that's I really enjoy that because how does that exactly lead to connection? I think when you start to understand the way the other person sees the world, you start to enjoy the world through their eyes, and you start to be able to share, in terms of intimacy, share the beauty that they see together because you understand their perspective, and somehow you converge as well. Of course, that allows you to gather information better and all that kind of stuff, and like that allows you to work together better, to share in all different kinds of ways. But for intimacy, that's a really powerful thing, and also for actually, like people you really disagree with, or people on the internet you disagree with, and so on. I find empathy is such a powerful way to resolve any tensions there. Even like people like trolls or all that kind of stuff, I don't deride them. I just kind of put myself in their shoes, and it becomes like an enjoyable camaraderie with that person.
So I want to draw a pretty hard line between perspective
Yeah,
and empathy, because empathy is frankly an overused term by people who don't really know what they're saying sometimes. I think you know what you're saying, but the vast majority of people listening,
I would argue that, but that's fine.
as soon as you say empathy, they're going to just be like, oh, yeah, I know, I've heard this 1,000 times.
Yes,
Empathy is about feeling what other people feel and
it's
or
more about
understand.
feeling. Would you say?
Yeah,
More about
it's about
feeling.
feelings. It's about understanding someone else's feelings. Feeling, it's not the same as sympathy where you feel their feelings. Empathy is about recognizing that they have feelings and recognizing that their feelings are valid. Perspective is more than just feelings. It's about It's about the brain. It's about the pink matter on the left side and the right side of the brain. Yes, I care about feelings. And this goes directly to your point about connection. Yes, I care about feelings, but I also care about objectives. What is your life? What is your aspirational goal? What was it like to grow up as you?
Yeah.
What was it like to experience this? And how did this shape your opinion on that? And, what is it that you're going to do next? More than just feelings, actual tactical actions. And that becomes extremely valuable in the operational world, because if you can get into someone's head, left brain and right brain, feelings and logic, you can start anticipating what actions they're going to take next. You can direct the actions that they're going to take next, because you're basically telling them the story that's in their own head. When it comes to relationships and personal connection, we talked about it earlier. The thing that people want the most is community. They want someone else who understands them. They want to be with people. They don't want to be alone. The more you practice perspective, empathy or no empathy, the more you just validate that a person is there. I am in this time and space with you in this moment. Feelings aside, right? That is powerful. That is intimate. And whether you're talking about lovers, or whether you're talking about a business exchange, or whether you're talking about collaborators in a crime, I'm here with you, ride or die. Let's do it, right? That's powerful.
How much of what you've learned in your role at the CIA transfer over to relationships, to business?
All right. So just to give an idea there, perspective is different than empathy, just like he said. It's putting yourself in their shoes. It's putting yourself in the idea of how they were raised, maybe the culture they come from. You cannot be identical to their feelings. You can't go through everything they've gone through. But I think you can find the breadcrumbs of why they act or do what they do. And in relationships, you'll see this. Sometimes you're like, where are you coming from? Why are you doing this? And I'm going to break this down real quick in a breakup story that was sent in. And I'm going to make a effort actually to point out the perspective versus perception part and where someone's not being understanding. This comes up again and again. And people, what they do is they surface base assumptions on someone's behavior, or they guess, especially post-breakup. And the reality is, if they really looked at and they knew their partner, which a lot of people do, when I get into live coaching sessions and I ask more questions, you know more than I do. You're just asking the wrong questions because you want to believe what you want to believe. For example, you don't want to believe that your ex is possibly seeing someone else, or the fact that they don't want to be with you anymore because they want to be single, and they might have met someone else. So your perspective is, yeah, but I'm a really good boyfriend. Yeah, but her parents like me. You start building this case all on your side, and all the while you're like, she's 21, she's good looking. She likes to drink and go out a lot, so she's putting herself in environments where she gets a lot of attention. She's told me before that she doesn't want to get married anytime soon. That would be her perspective. Then if you got deeper and you're like, why doesn't she want to get married anytime soon? Oh, one of her sisters had a baby at 19. She doesn't have a lot of extra money. She had a trauma in her past. Whatever. The list goes on. At least you can understand it, right? A lot of times what I'm telling people when you come to me, let's get some clarity first on where you're at, so you can accept the breakup, so you can accept where things are at right now, instead of building some kind of false narrative case of why you're such a good boyfriend or a good guy, or why they should forgive you. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know that they would leave me. Where are they coming from? All right, so we got 8 on deck. Let me get into this story right now. This was sent in to writemac.com. Like I said before, if you got a story you want to send it in, and I could break it down in a video like this. Hello, Coach. I have a situation where I haven't broken up, and I don't plan to anytime soon. I've been living with my girlfriend for a long time now, for about 2 years. We actually started out as roommates. It's kind of a long story, but we knew each other from going out once. Okay. I wasn't really interested, neither was she. But then about 3 months later, she came to my house and asked if she could rent a room and that she'd help out with cleaning my house. So right here we have a perspective to perception. You went out once, you weren't really interested and neither was she. She told you that, or are you assuming that? Because if she came back to live or get a room rented from you, I think she probably had some interest, even if she tells you, you know, when she moves in, like, oh, we'll just be friends. I think she might have had more interest in you than you had in her, and that's why she came back to rent a room, possibly, okay? I have a room downstairs that has a separate entrance, so I told her she could stay down there for a month, and we'd see how things go. All right, so first question would be, are you charging her rent, or is this just out of the goodness of your heart? Because to me, if it was one of your guy friends, would you be charging him rent? Would you let him move in that quickly? Or did you make a special exception for her? And what was her story to get that room downstairs? Being that, you know, you didn't really have a lot of interest in her in the date. You got this room downstairs, but, I mean, what's the scenario, right? That worked out fine as I was dating other women, and she did a good job of cleaning the house on the weekends. All right, so you got something out of it. You feel like, oh, she cleaned the house. Cool. Now, her perspective might be, I'm cleaning the house for you. I'm showing you how good a wife or girlfriend I can be, right? And your perspective would be like, this is great. I got the house clean, man. There's nothing I owe her because she's staying in my room downstairs. This is man 101 reason. Well, she's cleaning the house. I can see other women. I'm not that interested in her, whatever. All the while, she's weaving a nice little web of, look how she's demonstrating to you, look how good of a girlfriend I could be. Is that a possible perspective you overlooked? All right, so that worked out fine. That worked out fine as I was dating other women. I was never bothered by her, but of course, about 6 weeks after her living downstairs, she and I hooked up. Surprise, surprise. You know, even though you say you weren't interested in her, you obviously had some kind of attraction, or you wouldn't have asked her out in the first place, correct? It was nothing to me, but I could tell it was a big deal to her. She thought we were together, and I told her I wanted to stay single. Perspective, perception. So your perspective is, I can hook up, and it's casual, and she's like, when I hook up, I'm all in, and we're already living together, right? And you're saying, I was seeing other women, I wasn't even that into her. You guys are in different directions, right? She thought we were together. I told her I wanted to stay single. She understood. Did she understand? This is an interesting dynamic because she lives with you. So if you just hooked up with someone that you kind of dated or you weren't interested in, you know, you could just not call them again, right? You're like, oh, wow, this is a clinger. Oh, wow, this person's really needy. But when you live together, you're not going to be able just to shun that off. And that's why inviting someone to live at your house is a big deal, right? Especially if you're not an asshole by nature. You're not going to want to kick her out in the street in a day or a night. She thought we were together, and I told her I wanted to stay single. She understood and didn't make a big deal out of it, but over time, she won me over. So look how you wrote that. She won me over. She's been putting in work since day one, dude, right? Cleaning your house, doing these kinds of things. Would a normal roommate situation be something where, like, your buddy's like, let me clean the house for you? Probably not, right? And you wouldn't look at it like, oh, he's winning me over. And then I had to leave town on business for a couple months, which was hard on her as she is much more attached to me than I am to her. But we talked daily, and actually through the long distance, our relationship got stronger and I felt better about her. So that says a lot about you. You value that she stuck with you during the long distance, that she was there for you, perhaps wherever you were going in the world or, in your country, there wasn't a lot of options for you. And so you grew closer to her. Maybe this is someone that you talk to every night, right? She's a good girlfriend. She's loyal, honest, and we have great intimacy. Well, that lines up pretty damn good, isn't it? Those are probably the three biggest things men look for. So, right? A lot of guys will be like, what's the problem? She's highly affectionate and cares about me a lot, but she tends to do this thing where she creates situations that make me feel guilty. So why are you saying she makes you feel guilty? So this is your perception of the situation. But, like, let's switch it into perspective. Where is she coming from? You know that she wants more than you want, right? You know that she's more serious and attached to the relationship than you are. So her feelings are going to be more sensitive. So is she really trying to make you feel guilty, or is she just conveying how she feels, which doesn't line up with you, which makes you feel guilty? Right? So she's not purposely making you feel this way, or where she thinks she knows what I'm thinking. Now, that's a problem. When you're with someone and they think they know what you're thinking. I know you did this. I know you do this. I know you've been talking to so-and-so. And when they're wrong, that's when you got to immediately confront them, immediately, in any kind of intimate relationship, and say, hey, look, your assumptions are wrong. Because no one likes being accused of things they haven't done. So you immediately need to say, look, you're wrong about that. You're making assumptions here. I'm telling you the truth. Now, if this continues and continues on, then it's a huge red flag, because this person, what they're trying to do is they're trying to put you in a corner. And they're actually completely blind to the fact that they might be wrong, right? And so that can be a huge problem. Now, if you have sit-downs with her, she might just be shit-testing you or seeing how you react, but it also might be a manipulative tool she used in a past relationship with an ex-boyfriend where it worked every time. And a lot of times she's 33, so she's, I don't know, I don't want to say she's, been around, but she's probably had at least a couple relationships, right? And so whatever happened in those prior relationships, she's going to bring that in. And when she brings that into the relationship, what she's going to do is you're going to go, where's this coming from? And you need to let her know right away, that's not going to work with me. You're not going to read my mind. And I'm going to let you know, like, sit down, let's talk about this for a minute. I don't think that. I don't know where you got that from. But this idea that you think you can read my mind is not going to work. Nip it in the butt right away and don't defend yourself. If you're getting accused of something you didn't do, for example, I know you're texting other women. Listen, don't go, oh, you can check my phone. I never do that. Don't say sorry. Sit down. Let's talk about this. Listen, this is not how I operate in relationships, okay? I trust you. You trust me. I haven't done anything wrong here. I'm not going to explain myself. But you're not going to accuse me of things I haven't done. I'm telling you to your face. I'm telling you, looking you in the eyes, I haven't done anything. I'm not texting other women. Now, I do have some colleagues at work. I do have some friends from college, all right? That's fine. I'm not going to explain that to you. This idea that you know something that you don't know and you're accusing him of it, here's a better way to handle it, hon. Ask me the question. Ask me, hey, I noticed you were on your phone a lot. Are you texting someone? I just want to know. I feel a little bit insecure. Then we can talk about it in the real moment that you see me doing it and you're feeling insecure, and talk about it then. But this idea that I'm talking to someone, no. Ask me questions. Don't make assumptions. And if they can't do that, and that's how you operate, and that's how the way I'm suggesting you handle it, then at 33, and I believe you said it comes up later, 33 and 42. At this age, that should be sound communication. She'll say, I know you still love your ex, and it's okay. See, that's a little dart. That's her trying to test you. That's something maybe she, like I said, she maybe brought that up with a past relationship. And again, and he writes, I know you'll never care for me like you do her. So I don't know the ins and outs of your past relationship or what you divulged with her. Excuse me. But you need to have a serious conversation and go, look, I'm with you right now. From time to time, I do talk to my ex. We're on good terms, but in no way are we in love. In no way am I still contacting them. I'm with you. And I'm not going to explain this and make you feel better every time. Stop doing this, because it's going to become a problem. And the crazy part is these sort of statements come from times that we've had no issues, and then if she feels she's not getting me to commit to her long-term more, like marriage and kids, which is definitely on her radar and mine too. She's 33 and I'm 42. So that's something I read before. So if it's on your radar, so this is a big part right here, right? I've talked about this many times. It's a sweet spot for women. 32, 33, 34, 35. They want to get married, a lot of women, if they're in a relationship, all right? It's kind of the last chance for a lot of them, and to have kids. There's an expiration date on having kids, right? That's just a reality. So you at 42 are saying, yeah, I'm in the same boat. If you were like, I don't want to get married or have kids, it's not on my radar, I'd say just get out of this relationship, because it's just, you're going to go in circles. But if you can see a finish line where you're like, that's something I want also, then it's worth exploring this a little deeper and working through it. Now, like I said, your age counts. So she's been through a couple relationships, and I say this, hopefully, right, has a little bit of experience, and you just got to weed out some of the things that worked in her past relationship that aren't going to work in yours. and I'm really wanting to start a family in the next couple of years, and she feels like she feels like she'd be a great mom and loving wife. She feels that way, or you feel that way. Maybe that's a typo. But the sort of attempts to push me in that direction with guilt-ridden, passive-aggressive comments, and honestly, I know what she wants. She wants to ensure I marry her and that I'm committed, but her tactics are cheap and pushy. Well, let's just be honest. She's 33. There's a lot of women that want that, and that's not a bad thing, okay? And you haven't even, like I said, if we were in a live coaching session, we'd go into detail about, like what's her past relationships like, and what was her family dynamics and stuff like that, and we could get a little bit more of a idea. The idea her tactics are cheap and pushy, this just might be shit test. You need to stand up for yourself, okay? She creates scenarios. For example, I asked her to call the electric company about a situation, and she helped me with that, but then turned it into telling me that it might be best to put her name on the house. I said, we can talk about it later, but 10 minutes later, she texted that I just don't care about her that much, and it's okay that she's just a guest in my house. All right, so this is a great example of what you're talking about, right? Passive aggressive, making you quote unquote feel guilty. You immediately need to nip this in the butt, okay? You see potential in this long term, you need to stand up for yourself and go, hey, look, this is not going to fly. I just asked you to call the electric company. I told you I'd talk to you about it later, and now you're saying I don't care about you? Sit down, let's talk about this. We need to hash this out. And you need to speak directly. Now, if you let this fester, if you're like, oh, I didn't mean that, I'm sorry, I do care about you. No, you need to go on offense, okay? Otherwise, you're going to be pushed around, and she's going to use this narrative over and over again whenever she wants to get your attention, all right? I said we can talk about, what do you do with that? I just mentioned what I would do with that. We have this wonderful relationship, but when she doesn't get what she wants or feels shortchanged by something, she'll turn it into how much I don't care about her. All right, so you have a pattern there. You have a pattern to deal with. In that pattern, where is that coming from? This is where that perspective and perception comes from. Why does she feel this way, right? Is it because she lost her dad when she was young? Is it because a past relationship? Because then when you talk to her, you can see where she's coming from, right? And you can react to it a little bit better and say, I think this is why you're acting this way. Also, it's probably just the fact that she cares so much more at this point and conveys it in a different way that she feels shortchanged. But there are people out there, men and women, that it's never going to be enough because they've been neglected when they were young, and they're used to being neglected or left or abandoned, and so they're just waiting for that to happen. So they try to get out in front of it and then predict it, and it gives them some sort of power. Now, if she's in that place, then you probably have to get some therapy involved, okay? For her to be under the realization that she's sabotaging the relationship. I know it all stems from her wanting marriage and commitment at some point, and I'm with that. I'm not sure it all stems from that. I think it's a little deeper. Someone that goes to, keeps coming to how much I don't care about her, this was before you in relationships. And you could get a little deeper with it, asking about past relationships, but it's not just because of marriage. But I want that to come at my own pace. It's like she's pushing me into a corner. Well, this happens a lot. Like I said, 33, 35, 36. A lot of women want to get married. They're at a different pace. They feel like there's a clock, literally, biological clock. And so they push and they push. Now, if you're not up for that, you got to, like I said, have a sit down. Get out in front of it. Look, I'm into you. I'm serious about this relationship. We can work through some of our problems. But this idea that you're going to push me around, it's not going to work with me. I don't know if this is what's happened in your past relationships. It's not me. I don't want to break up with her, but I don't want to deal with this long term. And could this type of behavior be just the tip of the iceberg if we got married? I would not get married at this point anytime soon. This is still a discovery mission, okay? You said she's honest, loyal, and there's good intimacy. This is worth pursuing and seeing where it goes. But you're tread lightly. Don't get married. Give yourself at least a year more, okay? But there are guys out there that go, oh, once we got married, it just went to hell, right? Because they got what they wanted. Here's the thing. you still got some time here. The fact there's some positives here. You both want to get married. Like I said, honest, loyal, and great intimacy, that's something to work on, right? That's something. Her accusing you of not caring much could could be neglect on her end of caring and loving about you so much more. And good communication can get out in front of this, okay? Don't let things fester. Don't let things go. And then the other end, don't say sorry when you're not sorry. So when this comes up and she goes, oh, you don't care about me, go, let's talk about this. I don't need to keep telling you how much I care about you. You live with me. You're my girlfriend. That's a big deal to me, right? Where are you coming from on this? Why do you feel that way? Why do you keep using this as ammunition? Have a talk about it. How the relationship starts. I know you mentioned in another video how the relationship starts is usually how it will continue. That's absolutely true. There's some good things here, though. I'd highly recommend a live coaching session where we can get a little deeper and I can ask you some further questions on that. But really, this kind of a thing, there's probably always going to be a little bit of a sense of that. But the fact that you said that what I would ask is, how receptive is she to when you have talks, like I said, and you explain yourself and you have sit downs and you communicate your problems with each other? How receptive is she does she have the ability to say, yeah, I was wrong, to say you don't care, I'm sorry? That's a big one. So in this particular case, I don't think these problems are unfixable, but she needs to be accountable and agree that there is a problem, right? If that's not there, then there's no hope. If she's one of those that's like, no, and she just continues to be more stubborn and dug in that you don't care about me and makes it worse, then that's a problem. But if she stops herself when you have sit-down talks. One thing I didn't mention is we come from different cultures and our English isn't the best, let alone some things that are just cultural differences. Well, that's a whole nother ball of wax. I'm experiencing that and having relationships like that in the past, living in a different country. And that's something that, again, perspective is going to be different with different cultures. So you have to decide what you can accept and not accept, but you're not going to counter the culture, right? And knowing... It's one thing to be from other cultures. It's another thing to understand that culture really well, whether you've lived in it or been around it before. If it's completely foreign to you, just like perhaps, being around someone that speaks another language and you don't know one word, where if someone spoke Spanish and you know 20, 30%, you've been to Mexico before, so you've not Mexico before, because there's a lot of countries that speak Spanish that have different cultures. My point is, if you're able to understand that culture beyond just her and the relationship, that'll help out, right? But this is going to take a little bit more patience on both your ends, but it will definitely contribute to miscommunications and misunderstandings. But you're going to have to, and this will absolutely help once you understand that where they're coming from culture-wise, that it's not them against you, it's what I've been told and programmed and what my expectations are going to be, and whether you can meet those or not. Now, whether that person is malleable or has the ability to pivot and make things better because they want to is a whole other thing. I'm understanding of that too, but sometimes I'm not sure, is she just being manipulative? Well, a lot of people, including women, are manipulative. Manipulation means getting what you want. It's how far you want to manipulate, right? And I didn't see too much manipulation here. What's your opinion on all of this? Is it normal for a woman that wants to get married? I don't think the base of your problem is that she wants to get married, because it sounds like you said at 42 it's on your radar too. So that's actually a positive. She's loyal, honest, and you got great intimacy. That's a great foundation. You've lived together and you're not at each other's throats. There's a lot of positives here. There's more positives than negatives. And the fact that she kind of throws out these guilt nets, which are common for people when they argue. She's learned that somewhere along the way, right? And making her aware that it's not going to work with you. And like I said, when someone throws a guilt net is what I'll call it, right? You need to get out and go, hey, not me. I'm not getting entangled in that. And the minute you start saying sorry, or you start Backpedaling, you got to be on offense on that. Hey, look, you're accusing me of not caring. That's bullshit. And then you need to have a sit-down talk about it. And if things change from there, then you can go. But if they don't change from there, then that's a huge red flag. All right. Now, anyone in the live stream that has a question about their own relationship or about this story, throw it in the comments. Excuse me. We will be getting... I did have one other perception perspective video that I was going to share that's a little bit different. Let's see here. Let's see here. Totally different style video, but this is how perspective and perception from another perspective.
Two 8 of diamonds, two identical 8 of diamonds. Which one do you like better? Do you like this one or do you like this one? Well, let me confess, they're not identical because one's bigger than the other. Can you guess which one it is? Does that make a difference? Look at that. Perception is everything, but more on that after this.
She was Hannah Montana when Bush was president. Thanks, Obama.
Hey, what's up, friends? Thanks for joining me. We're going to cover 3 P's today, but let's start with the first two, perspective and perception. Now, perception is the way you regard or understand or interpret something. It's a mental impression or process, so it's based on the senses. So what you see, hear, taste, or feel, and what you interpret from that. Perspective is a particular attitude toward a way of regarding something. It's a point of view. So perspective is a result of perception. So perspective, your attitude, is a result of the way you interpret stuff via the senses. So let's go back to our cards. You couldn't really tell which one was bigger because of your perception. You weren't able to correctly perceive the cards. Now let's introduce the third P, position. Had you altered your position, it would have been easier to tell which card was bigger. So perspective comes from perception, but your perception is influenced by your position. Get it? Simple thought exercise. Your perspective and your perception is everything. I'll give you a short parable. 2 different dogs go into a room on 2 different occasions. One dog enters smiling and comes back out a few minutes later even happier, smiling from ear to ear. An angry dog goes into the same room and a few minutes later comes out growling and furious. Now, somebody standing by sees this happen and they're curious, so they go into the room to figure out what could happen to make one dog so happy and the other dog so furious. So they go in and see that the room is covered from wall to wall in mirrors. And the happy dog went in and saw a bunch of other dogs smiling back at him. And the angry dog went in and saw hundreds of other growling dogs at him and left even more angrier. So what I'm saying is your perception and your perspective play really big roles in the way you operate in this world. So how do you perceive your problems? How do you perceive time? I think it makes a big difference in how we act and how we love our neighbor and demonstrate love to each other. Hey, if you enjoyed anything about the video,
Cool video. So that gives you a nice little perspective, perception thing. We've gotten into it pretty deep here. We're almost an hour deep in. 5 on deck. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the comments. Bottom line is, though, that this is a big part of why you're having trouble. I can't block my ex. I can't deal with my ex. Your perspective and your perception are wrapped up. And I just had this recently. I just did a couple session where they got back together. And this guy was like, she just doesn't She just doesn't show me how much she cares about me. I'm always showing her how much I care about her. She just doesn't show me, like sometimes I want love. And I said, could that just be your perception? And he was stuck for a moment. He thought to himself, yeah, that could be. Because to her, she gives him love and affection all the time. And to him, it's not enough, or it's not the right time, or it's not the right place. But the history of his family is, and this is someone that I know, he was never given very much attention. So to him, it's never enough. And it's not genuine. It's not real. But he wouldn't know what real attention is because he's not used to getting it. Do you see what I'm saying? So perspective and perception are really big pushers in your relationship. And when you get to understand that, and that's why I share the CIA agent's super tactic here, because it is a superpower when you start to think about it. And I've talked about this years back. There used to be a nanny show where this nanny would go in, and I don't know, I think there was more than one of them on reality TV, and this nanny would go in, and people would have problems with their kids, raising their kids. And she would go in there and tell them what they're doing wrong and what they're doing right, and the parents would say, well, I am doing that, or I am not doing that, I am doing that. And then you know what Judgment Day would be? She would place video cameras around the house to show them how they were acting with their kids. Parents would literally be in tears watching how they talked to their kids, how they interacted with their kids. Because what was happening is these parents' perception was never about their behavior with their kids. It was about how they were reacting to their kids, right? It was never, they couldn't step out and see what the kids were seeing. And this is amazing when you think about it, right? Because we don't have video cameras on ourselves, so our perception's always going to be off. We can't see our own body language, right? We can't see what we're doing. I can right now because I'm on camera, but you can't see it. And so when this lady would put up these cameras, they'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe I talked to my kid that way. Well, the perception the kid had was what you saw on the camera, right? Amazing. And if you had this probably in relationships, it would be really the same way. You'd probably be thinking, oh, I was a little unreasonable there. Oh my God, I didn't know my eyes were like that, right? And it happens again and again and again. All right, folks, I hope that was good for you. I will be on deck this week around the same time, live streams all week, similar process. I hope you liked it. Stay strong, stay you. It's curtains today.